Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining me on a Thursday night. I just saw that the Islanders are up 4-0, so that's cool. This is also the first night I'm using my new microphone. My wife got it for me for my birthday. Stoked about it. Tried to use it last time, didn't realize it was muted the entire time. And I've worked in IT, so that really says a lot. I am very pumped about my guest tonight. This is a long time coming. He was a Day Zero fan actually, of me getting this up and running. So I'm glad that I am able to get him here tonight. It's been a little challenging because there's always the people who I talk with all the time and want to get on immediately, and I have to space it out to not burn everyone out that I have a good relationship with quickly and then start reaching out. But I am super pumped to bring him on tonight. So without further ado, Mr. Thomas J Devens.
Howdy. Thanks a lot for having me, man. It's good to be here.
Oh, likewise. And we have a nice little crew in the chat already. I wanted to say what's up to everybody over there. So we'll get ready for a good time tonight. Yeah, thank you for joining. And especially, it's always very nice when someone whose work I've read before, when I get something up and running, is like, dude, as soon as that's good to go, have me on. And that's how it was with you. So I appreciate that. It made this very easy. And,
yeah,
you know, especially.
I've been doing this now. It feels like a long time ago now.
It feels like forever. Yeah, the first one was in May. And yeah, the first was in May, and it was like I was doing one every week. And then I very quickly realized I was not reading as much as it's almost impossible unless you kind of just don't work, which would be awesome, but kind of not feasible. So it took a little bit, but then I started doing the 3 times a week, which is way more up my alley. So it worked out well where I could ask you guys like a month or two in advance and be like, there we go. And especially with some of the more recent stories, they're a little bit shorter than the 800-page ones. So that's always nice. And especially yours. I'm going to just pop the cover up here. This is the Scroungers, which I read, and then you very kindly sent me the audiobook of it, which just came out and was very well done. But one of the biggest things that I love about your work, I've read, I think, 2 or 3 of the books so far, is they are rapid paced and quick and brutal and a lot of fun. And it makes it almost perfect because it has the world to it, Vermin of the Old Empire, the underlying theme, but each book can almost be read as a standalone. Is that kind of the route you wanted to go with this?
Yeah, that was my main thing, because my other series that I started, I put the first book out like 5 years ago now. That's much more of like a sprawling epic, and I've had the third book about 90% done for 2 or 3 years now, and just everything kept coming up. And then when I decided to write the Scroungers, I was like, I just want to do something fast and fun, and then it just kind of ran away from me. And I was like, yeah, I want to have a bunch of short books that you can read fast-paced, just punchy, and you can pick any one in the series up whenever.
Which is a great idea for it, because I really like the whole first off, your titles. I know on Twitter you're Revolting Peasant, and this is Vermin of the Old Empire. Your verbiage is so on point and such a good vibe. I feel like it may be a little bit of an acquired taste, but I feel like when I can't read it, it's dark.
I got a Revolting Peasant koozie made.
Oh, that's awesome. That as soon as I saw that and I saw Vermin of the Old Empire, I was like, this is gonna work out well. And it definitely did. But I wanted to see, because again, thank you, Alex. Keeping with the Scroungers theme, your world's very bleak, very dark. We'll dive into grimdark in general in a little bit, but it felt very lived in and unique to the way that you write. So with, kind of, I guess that genre really exploded, especially over the last couple years, where almost not everything's grimdark, but it has a vibe to it. So how do you go about writing the story that you want to tell and going in that genre, but also keeping it unique?
I think a lot of it, like, I don't necessarily think that I go like full on grimdark necessarily, but I just like having like the grit and the filth and just following all the people that have been like beaten down their entire lives, but at the same time not necessarily having it be like an entirely hopeless thing. Like, people still think they can do better or try to, whatever that might be. And yeah, I think that's the main thing about it, is I just like to stick to the lessers, like the everyday people.
It makes it a lot more fun to read, especially stories like these. It gets a little exhausting after a while. I think I spoke to someone else and they wanted their main character to kind of come back from a journey, but having the abilities that an apprentice person would have. And as opposed to when we jump into the story and it's like they're 20 years old, but a master swordsman. I feel like it's a lot more fun to focus on the everyman, which is something that you kind of excel with, especially in the Scroungers. There's a lot of POV jumps, but every one of them is fully fleshed out and you kind of relate to them immediately. How do you go about writing the characters that way where they can kind of transcend the book and be relatable to a reader?
For some of them, the easiest part is like the the older exhausted people that have all their joints popping and shit every time they move, because that's just kind of me putting myself in there. Like, so that's, I could just write that from experience. But then I don't know, for the most part it's just kind of like coming up with the basics of a character, and then just trying to get yourself in their head and try to think like them, like where they come from and everything like that. And I don't know, just kind of like, it's one of those things. People, like so many authors, always say that like the characters kind of write the book for them, but that is pretty much how it goes.
It's interesting because I also feel like maybe the more I started reading, you always think that the characters are the most important thing as opposed to like plot or world building or something like that. But I think that reading someone like Joe Abercrombie or something like that, where it really focused on the heavy character work, it's like almost a better way to get people invested into the story because you kind of get so into their heads and so wrapped up into their stories and emotions and what they go through, that even a story like that where the plot is essentially just a big circle of nothing and it's become an all-timer. So hearing you say that, where it's the characters kind of are up on the pedestal and really tell the story, and that's like your jump off point, is very cool to hear because I only really recently started paying attention to that. It always impresses me a lot. You could have the coolest plot in the world, but if you're not invested in the people going through the story, it's like, okay, yeah, like we'll get there. And
Yeah,
you
if
do a
you don't
good
want to
job of
spend
that.
time with the character, it's difficult.
Yeah, exactly. Is there other influences outside of books that made you kind of go that route?
um a lot. There's like, over the years, I feel like a lot of things have influenced where I am now, which has influenced these books. Um, a lot of like growing up, coming up in like the DIY punk scene definitely helped. Which something that'll become very apparent in the next Vermin of the Old Empire book is always having like a big interest in the labor movement of the late 1800s, early 1900s, and like the IWW and stuff like that, the Haymarket tragedy. So like all of this stuff definitely kind of went into it.
Very cool. I like that type of like post-industrial revolution-y type story as well. Especially when you bring it into like a fantasy aspect. Yeah, I think that's pretty sweet. And it's gonna, when is that coming out now then? Is that the one that you just mentioned? Sorry, that was 90% done.
No, that's the other series. This one, I was planning on having them out this year, but hit some financial snags early on in the year where I had a feeling that I wasn't going to be able to put aside the money for the cover art and stuff like that. So I kind of just set it aside a little bit and concentrated on writing a bunch of short stories this year. But it will be out next year. Definitely, I'm about halfway done writing it. And it's
awesome
good so far.
I love that. I already mentioned the word, and you just mentioned the world as well. But what inspired the vermin of the old empire? Like, because that is so descriptive, and it's like you could almost like kind of feel that.
I was struggling trying to come up with names for the Scrounger, for the book itself, and I was just like kind of throwing things around. And at one point, I was like the rats of the battlefield, like just trying to think of like low level things, and I was like, no, that's kind of fucking stupid. And then I was like, no, vermin, and it just kind of popped in my head. And then I decided that every book was going to be, so like the Scroungers, the Dregs, like everyone was going to be like kind of like a slur for low class people, basically.
It's very descriptive, and it fits the theme of it all very well. I'm like, that's what really drew me in. I think I bought the Dregs last year for my birthday, when it was like, that was one of the ones where it was like, post your book, I'm gonna buy it. And I think I saw the Dregs on there, and I was like, fuck yeah, instantly. Like that was like a hook. So I'm just gonna share the cover of that too, because the cover of the Dregs is sick. That is very well. Who does your covers? Because even the Scroungers is really awesome.
I'm using Mibble art, which originally I had a different cover for the Scroungers at first, and then I had another cover for the Dregs, and that one was like one of those like pre-made covers that I got. And a couple days before it was supposed to come out, or a couple weeks before, another book came out with almost the same cover, because it was just like stock images and stuff like that, and I was like, oh, that's not good.
Yeah,
and
time to pivot.
I, like, delayed the release for a month and just like had to like scramble. And I had heard good things about Mibble art, and that they also had a quick turnaround, so I got them to do a new cover of the Dregs, and I was so happy with that I had to get the Scroungers to match.
Yeah, those covers are awesome, and I think I got exposed on the last episode, and I was very embarrassed, because every person who says that they use that company always comes out so sick, and it's so unique. Obviously, the process that they go through to make it unique to you, but I didn't realize that wasn't a single person. So I was like, this dude must have the wildest backlog of trying to keep up with all of you. And then someone was like, no, that's a fucking company. And I was like, yeah. That really shows how outside of the spectrum of things I was in before jumping into all this. But I feel like even in the last like year and a half or so, I've gained so much insight on the indie scene, and like you said, the punk DIY scene is it's almost very similar to this scene, where it's like, I'm going to do it, like this is my like little bit of a budget, I'm going to self promote, I'm going to do all this type of stuff what do you think, as far as being an indie author, is the most unexpected thing that you've really had to do to really kind of put yourself out there? You know, every author, I'm sure, isn't like, I'm going to write a book and then make a TikTok. And like, that's kind of what is ended up having to happen now.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of is like, I mean, I know I'm not really very active on social media, but I'm still a lot more active than I ever thought I would have been.
Mm-hmm.
And that's definitely a thing. Like, I'm trying to use it more often. I'm just not a very technologically savvy person. So I think that's definitely a lot of it. I'm actually tossing around ideas to do a YouTube channel soon with like reading short stories and stuff like that. And that's something I definitely would not have seen myself doing before this.
That's cool though. That's like a really good idea, especially to like get the name out there. Even if it's not necessarily your short stories, people will start to become familiar with you.
Mm. But it sounded like I recorded a few and it was fun, and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, hopefully that's coming on the horizon.
Yeah.
It's like those little things where you don't kind of realize how much effort is going to go into it besides the actual writing. Like, you know, I see so many people kind of get to that point and it's like, you know, I wanted to be an author, not a marketer. And it's like, it kind of comes with it, almost like the you know, how you mentioned the punk scene where people would sell CDs out of the back of the car, like after the show, that type of thing. You get off stage and sell your own merch.
There's honestly a part of me that wants to, at least for a couple of things, like publish a short story that is really just me with a Xerox machine, making copies, stapling them together, and just hand them out like an old punk scene, like what I was doing 20 years ago. Just do that make my own booklet of short stories to give out.
That would be pretty sick. I feel like people would appreciate that as well. Yeah. What were you doing 20 years ago? Because now I'm diving into that.
20 years ago, I was just out of high school, and so I was still just playing in bands, working, and I tried doing a local zine, but there wasn't really any interest in it.
Mm. And you're... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was like doing interviews, like I can't remember the name of the band. I did an interview with Forca Macabre. I think they were like a maybe Brazilian grindcore band or something like that.
Wow. You're going deep in pocket on that. It's funny. It was like I dipped a toe into the DIY, like the punk scene. I was more of a I guess metal, but also a big jam band fan, which actually has a lot more of a punk crossover than I ever would have expected. I feel like it's that same type of grind where it's especially like older jam band fans and even, you know, newer ones to some extent, but it was like, we're buying ingredients for chicken quesadillas and selling them, and that's how we're going to buy our tickets. Like, we are going to tie-dye t-shirts, and that's how we're going to do this. There's the big it used to be cassette tapes where you would like trade them in parking lots and that type of stuff, and it was just very funny to me to see the crossover from that to the punk scene to now being half immersed, I guess I would say, in like the indie writing scene.
Yep. It all kind of meshes together.
Yeah, but I feel like that, you know, the cream will rise to the top of that, where it's the people who go out of their way to connect with people. Like I said at the start of this, like, we've been talking on Instagram and Twitter and all this type of stuff, like way before I started this. And I always feel like it's so cool when I could have someone like you on, because we were talking when there's really nothing in it for you. Like, you know, you're just a cool fucking guy, and talking to me as like, I liked your book, man. And it was like, you know, I like that. And, you know, I feel like that goes a long way, and word of mouth is a gigantic thing. So
yeah,
people start going around.
If you can't meet cool people along the way, what's the fucking point?
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like we've especially gotten lucky. I know you're a very big part of it as well, but one of the coolest things that popped up is that grimdark epic fantasy sub. Yeah. Can you go into that a little bit? Just let everyone know, what the deal is over there. Because I feel like you're a big part of that. Jasper obviously is running the show over there and everything, but that subreddit has blown up and is real cool.
Yeah. I don't even remember what the number's at for how many people are there, but yeah, I mean, Jasper started that. Has it been a year now? And I think I remember him having a post about like the year anniversary or something like that.
Yeah, that sounds about right, actually.
And I remember when I saw someone posting about it on Twitter. It might have been like Michael R. Fletcher or something. And I got over there, and I think it was only like 200 members at that point. And I was like, oh, I should get in here because like it's when you get to know people when it's not like too bombarded. And yeah, it's a nice spot. Like lots of stuff popping up with books, different book suggestions and stuff like that. I like they do the short story contests, which is awesome. And yeah, it's just a great community that he set up.
Yeah, it's very cool, especially as a non-author like me reading all of your guys' short story contests. I'm like, I look forward to this monthly or whenever those are done. It's very cool.
I know he reached out to me to be a mod for it, and I was like, I don't know how to use this thing, but sure, just like bear with me. And he, like, it's basically just keeping an eye out to make sure to get rid of spam and stuff like that. So it's pretty simple, but I was like, yeah, thanks for giving me the chance.
Yeah, it's very cool. And a lot of the I won the contest over there, which was the darkest joke, and I'm not going to repeat it on here because I don't need that like somehow getting back to anyone. But I'm happy about that, which I was pumped about. But they do a lot of cool stuff there. If anyone in the chat, I see Matt, you definitely need to get on Reddit over here because it's awesome and very cool. Your stories would actually go over very well over there as well. But the things that get done over there, it's very cool to see the community, especially in such a little subgenre of things, really have each other's backs, which is cool. There's some good reviewers there. I met Bro Manasy at the Jay Kristoff event the other week, so that was very cool. And he posts his reviews over there, so it's like it's really kind of blowing up of very talented authors along with us, me and him on the outside, where it's like readers and being like, yeah, buy this is awesome. What was kind of your lead into sticking with that theme, into that grimdark territory? This really, it doesn't have to necessarily be straight grimdark, but that style of storytelling where it's very nitty gritty and brutal and realistic.
I think it's mostly just like that's what I've always been drawn to. Like that's the stuff I like to read most. Not to say that I don't enjoy other stuff too. Like a cozy book's nice once in a while. One day maybe I'll write one. But yeah, it's just generally what my preferences lean towards. Like I always liked. When I was in high school, I would always, like at the end of the year, the English teacher would be like, hey, Thomas, you're going to fail for not doing anything. But if you write some stories, I'll bring your grade up. So I would just like throw together a bunch of really bleak short stories.
Huh. That's pretty awesome. Especially that that's how it came, because I was going to ask, is this something you set out to do, to be an author? But I guess it's really just about passing a class was where the start came in.
Yeah. Back then it was all like sci-fi dystopia sort of stuff. Like back when I was in high school and I read nothing but like George Orwell and Aldous Huxley.
Mm-hmm. George Orwell, yeah, it's funny the way that things change. Like I was reading Kurt Vonnegut and like all that type of stuff, and then I don't even know what happened. I feel like I took a break from reading for a little bit, but unintentionally, and then came back in and just stumbled upon this type of stuff, and I was like, what am I do? Like, once you start reading this type of thing, it's like the Sirens of Titan isn't going to hit the same way. Like, yeah, it's amazing and like a masterpiece in its own right. But it's like, then you read Hyperion and it's like, oh, okay. And again, it's like that type of focus on the characters and the storytelling as opposed to like, oh, this is a neat idea. But, I guess that's the big difference. What was I going to say? My computer froze for a second. Okay. So that was what attracted me and you to that type of storytelling. But since we've seen, especially recently with the last couple of years, this explosion of this type of genre, why do you think so many people are being drawn to it? Like, what do you think connects other people to this?
I think there's probably a couple things.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the bleak shit still can be escapism.
Honestly, yeah.
Sometimes the bleaker shit is going on outside. I think it could partially be that kind of like a catharsis sort of thing. And I think a lot of it also just has to do with, like a lot of people are always talking about the characters with like gray morality and stuff, and just not really wanting that, like wanting a little bit more nuance between the good and evil sort of stuff. And it's kind of in some ways more realistic, at least in the sense of like showing a more broad spectrum of how people are. Like there's plenty of not unrealistic stuff about it, and there's plenty of realistic stuff in the more cut and dry good and evil books as well. Just I think that showing a little bit more of that nuance and human emotion and drive kind of like draws people in.
Mm-hmm. Have you always been drawn to that type of thing, whether not even just books now, but are you a big movie guy, TV?
I not as much lately. I'm kind of like just put Star Trek on for the 15th time in the background, not really pay attention. I used to watch a lot more movies when I was younger, like mostly like B horror movies and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But like there's a handful of shows I try to keep up on, but I don't watch as many movies as I used to.
I feel like it gets very hard. There's been a lot of stuff that just comes out, and it like once you're behind, it's impossible to get out in front of again.
Yeah, and just there's too much stuff. Trying to find the time to read, write, play video games, and then movies too.
Mm-hmm. What's your favorite video game of the year so far?
Of the year, so not of this year, but that I played this year would be the Banner Saga, which that came out a while ago, but I finally played it this year, and yeah, it was mostly because of the story in it. It was an amazing story, and it's have you heard of it?
No, I'm gonna have to look it up though.
It's like this it's like a turn-based strategy game, but also focuses on like choices. It's a lot of reading and stuff. And then You have the turn-based battles, but then the choices you make affect how things go. And it has this art style that's kind of like the old I'm forgetting the name. Like the old, like you remember the old animated Lord of the Rings?
Oh yeah, yeah.
That sort of style where it's the or no, not that. What am I thinking of? More kind of like heavy metal.
Oh yeah,
Where
yeah,
it's
yeah.
like,
Like almost stop motion-y.
yeah, but they also kind of like where it looks like they draw over film like live action film.
Yeah.
Like there's a name for it, but I can't remember it. It has like that old fantasy animated style that it looks great. And it, like I said, it just has an amazing story to it.
Oh, that sounds pretty sick. I'm gonna have to look into that. I'm always looking for something good to play, so I'll check that out. I know everyone's big game this year was the Expedition 33.
I still have to play that.
What was that?
I still have to play that one.
I know. I started and got very busy, so I had to put like a pin in it, but I have to get back to it. But yeah, that was another big story one. I think it just like broke the record for most nominations at whatever big award show it is. I think there's like 13 nominations for it, which is crazy. Almost actually, it's kind of funny going back. Well, sticking with the game, but just talking about the indie scene, because I didn't realize until it came out that whole game it was like the head developer from BioWare, I think, and it was like his side hustle where he's like, this would be cool, and was doing it. And they found the composer to make all the music. They found him on Reddit. They found him on SoundCloud. And that was how they found the music. And the script writers for the game they found on Reddit. And it was like all of these pieces together of just like, hey, I'm trying to do this cool thing. Is anyone interested? And like that's how they linked up. And now it's like a masterpiece of a game.
That's awesome.
Very crazy. Just kind of going back to like the indie scene and like how everyone pieces together. But yeah, sticking with shows and movies and everything, I feel like because the way that we were talking, especially about the morally gray characters, have you ever watched The Wire?
No, I haven't.
The Wire is like it's an older HBO show from probably like the mid 2000s, which sounds weird now, but it's like where Michael B. Jordan got his start there. There was a whole bunch of famous people, but it's like about the pretty much the macro of Baltimore and like the drug trade and the cops, everything with it. But the cops are bad and the drug dealers you spend all your time with, and you're like, I don't know if they're that bad. And then there's dock workers who come into it and you're like, they're bad. Like it's every person is like in a different scene, and you go from they are a piece of shit and I don't like them, and then as soon as something happens on the other end and they act a different way, you're like, well, yeah, I get why they do that. And it's just you would probably enjoy it because it's like a character study into like such a realistic thing. That's always my go-to recommendation. I was very late watching it, so now I feel like I should be getting royalties for promoting it at this point.
How many seasons of that were there?
5 and doable.
I think that's one of the things I'm usually looking for is just like when I get home from work and sit down for dinner, just something I could put on for like the couple hours I have before I have to go to sleep that I don't have to think about it, don't have to find what I want to watch, just like toss that on, kind of zone in and out.
I would definitely recommend that then. That's an easy one to just like have on, and it's not like one of those shows where something happens, a blink, you miss it, and then the plot doesn't make fucking sense. Like, it's a cop and drug dealer show, essentially. Like on the surface level, it gets way deeper, but it's nothing crazy. My brother throwing in Wire references. So this is actually very upsetting to me because I know he hasn't watched it, but he bought me an Omar t-shirt. So sorry to call you out like that, but I know you're lying. So you haven't seen it either. Pivoting back to the writing, are because there's so many stories that you're working on. The original series that you're doing, you said, is our one book there for the last 3 years is 90% done. You're working on another Vermin book. What is your writing process like? How do you keep tabs on all of these ideas in the way that you're doing it without kind of getting the wires crossed?
It's a mix of things. At least with the Vermin books, it's easy because I actually have multiple Vermin stories going right now, but just like the one that I'm concentrating on most. But I kind of have like the start of 3 more.
Wow.
But since they're all set in the same world, it's mostly just a matter of differentiating the characters, and like these ones go over there, these ones go that way. But I've got like right down here a stack of binders that have different world building notes for each separate thing,
and
it just all a lot of chaos.
It almost kind of works out because I feel like a lot of the story is chaos in itself, so it almost kind of makes sense that the writing process behind it is created from chaos.
The main thing is like every now and then, I'll just have like a busier week. Like I've been working overtime for the past 8 weeks now, so I haven't gotten as much writing in, which means once I do have a chance to sit down and write again, I'm probably going to have to go back and read everything I've written so far just to refresh myself, or like skim at least. Mm-hmm. And I try to keep notes of just like the basis of what happens in each chapter. But yeah, after there's like a long sprint that I don't have the chance to write, I'm just like, oh shit, what's going on? And then just got to brush up again, then try to blow through as many chapters as I can. And then I can always go back and touch things up and bring it all together, but just getting things down.
Are you a outliner, or are you just, I'm sitting and just going for it?
I come up with the main couple characters I want to work with, and generally have like an idea of the general vicinity of where it's going to end. But everything is just on the fly.
That's always so cool to me. Like I tried to write something like a year or two ago, and I did it in both methods, where I had one where it was fully outlined, and I had like literally like 27 things, and like followed the line for like the peak, all this stuff. And I did that. And by the time I was done doing it, I was like, I'm not even interested in this. And like, it was really hard to do.
I think that's how it would go for me too. Yeah.
Like I had the whole thing and I was like, wow, cool story. And then it was like, oh, write the words to make it happen. And it was like, but I know everything. Like you got to have a little bit of room for improv in there. I feel like a healthy mix of those two is really the way to go. Cause then I tried to do it where it was, this idea popped in my head, I'm going to start writing. And I think I had 18 words and was like, I don't know what the fucking, I have no idea like what is happening next. Like this always blows my mind to hear the behind the scenes of how you guys put all of these stories together, because it's so far into me.
I guess like the closest thing to outlining I do is all just, especially when I'm at work, like the time that I have most of my ideas is like 9 o'clock on a weekday. When I've been at work for an hour and there's nothing I can do about it, I'll have the ideas pop in my head. I'm just like, oh, I'm not going to remember that when I get home at 7.
Yeah, sounds about right.
It's like, all right, well, that's good. That's gone. It's a great idea, but it's gone. So I keep like a busted up notebook with me at work. And every now and then, like if I have a second, I'll like quick jot down some notes or something. But even that, like I'll have what in my head is like the best line ever. and I'll have a quick second to write down like 2 or 3 words. And I'm like, okay, I'll remember the line when I see those words. I don't.
No, I was about to say, does that work?
Try to come up with something kind of close.
That's like one of my favorite questions since I started doing this. I'm glad you actually mentioned it because there are so many good lines in the story, and I always am curious, as the author of them, do you know right away when you write something, you're like, that's going to hit, I nailed that? Or is it kind of, you have to wait for the second or third reading of it by yourself or like an arc reader to kind of point it out and, give the little highlight and be like, that was really good? Or do you know like immediately?
I think it's more towards for me, it's more finding out later on. Occasionally there might be a line or two that I feel good about, but not really dead set on until I go through it again. Because a lot of the times when I'm writing the first draft, I'm kind of like starting to blaze through it at a certain point. So then when I go back and like read each chapter, I'm like, oh yeah, I like that.
It's funny to hear all of that because so many people are there's such a wide spectrum of things. Like other people I've talked to have been like, no, I think everything fucking sucks until like someone points out that it's good. And then other people are like, oh yeah, like as soon as it's on the page, I'm like, got it. So it's a very wide range of answers that question always gets. And I think it's very insightful to the writing process that each one of you has because it's so unique and different. Other people could sit down and do the outline thing and have a goal of I'm doing 1,000 words a day, and the way that you just said I'm at work, I need to remember I have a tatted up spiral notebook, and like that's how it comes out. It's very interesting to hear. It's very cool from an outsider perspective of things.
I think for me, the best thing for deciding that I had some good lines was getting to hear RJ Bailey read them to me, basically. Like hearing him read my book I was like, oh shit, that's not bad. He makes
that's awesome. That must have been a pretty surreal feeling to hear your words come to life like that.
Yeah, he does such an amazing job. Like it was surreal. Yeah, it was great.
What was the whole process like to really get that audiobook up and running and everything? Like I'm so unfamiliar with it, but did someone reach out saying, hey, we want to do this? Or were you, reaching out to people?
No, I just, one day, I don't remember if I think I just sent RJ a message to like ask about rates and was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this anytime soon, but I'd like to. Because ever since the first audiobook I heard him narrate was Ritual Bone, the first book of the Dead Saga from Lee C. Connolly. And I think when I was listening to that, I was like, fuck, I want to get this guy to narrate my books.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, just earlier this year, before all the financial problem, before like my truck broke down multiple times and shit like that, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna reach out and give it a shot, see what we can do. And he got back to me with prices, like his hourly price and everything like that. And I was looking at it, thinking about figuring out how many words, like how long the book would be. And I was like, I think we can do this. And then he has like a form basically where you give information and describe characters and stuff like that. And I can authors can give him certain bits here and there, But because I've listened to him narrate so many audiobooks and just he nails every one of them, I was just like, hey man, like I trust you to do this. Like I think you got like
Yeah, you got the vibe.
I don't know what I'm doing. this is your thing, and he just did a perfect job with it.
That's so cool. I'm glad that came out exactly as you wanted. It's crazy how a good narrator, like an audiobook narrator, could really make it or break it. Because like I've listened to yours, I've listened to a couple other ones, and it keeps you sucked in and very focused. And a couple other ones I've listened to, especially while I'm driving, I just start thinking. I get lost in my own head, and then I have to rewind like 5 or 10 minutes because I have no idea what happened. So just know that did not happen. So that was money well spent. Great job narrating. Are there plans to do any of the other books?
Oh yeah,
down the line.
As soon as I have the money set aside, I'm gonna get. He is, as long as he's down to keep doing it, whenever I can afford to. He is the voice of the Vermin of the Old Empire.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, locked and loaded. Yeah. Speaking of Vermin, like I said, I wanted to go back and talk about the Dregs, because this was my first introduction to your work and instant fan. Can you give a little bit of background on the Dregs?
Just in which way? Just
a basic synopsis. Then a little synopsis.
So before getting into the Dregs in particular, just always the Vermin of the Old Empire. Every book starts at the end of a devastating battle. So every standalone novella will pick up at the same point. So they're all kind of happening at the same time as one another. And the Dregs follows a misfit ragtag group of survivors, namely a former butcher that was in the Falbergian militia as he's slowly bleeding out. And eventually they decide that they need to find and kill the brother of the prince who is going to take his brother's spot and be a tyrant. So it is a jaunty journey to assassinate a tyrant.
Perfect.
Along the way, they meet your archetypal farm boy chosen one, who is just a farmer that is also a necromancer.
Mm-hmm. Which I thought was the coolest part of it. This, again, I think I read when it first, not it first came out, but when I first started getting into the indie scene-ish, I guess you could say. And I thought one of the coolest aspects of this story was the magic system that was involved in it. It really took everything that I'd previously read and turned it on its head. And it subverted my expectations so much, where for such a short story, not a short story as in like this is 30 pages, but compared to reading a Game of Thrones type story, for instance, where it's 1,200 pages, this packed such a punch and had so many twists and turns along the way. How did you come up, like I said, with such a unique magic system to go along with this story?
So with sorry about that. With my other series, Fall of Emros, it's a very restrained magic system that, like, as a reader, you know it exists, but the world doesn't know it exists. And it's not that prevalent. And then just when I started doing these, I kind of wanted to, I really wanted to get some magic out and have fun with it. And I was just like, this is going to be pretty much all chaos magic. Like, you can't just do whatever you want, but no one really understands how it works. But it's very powerful when you can get it to work.
Mm-hmm.
And I just ended up, because of how steeped in death everything is, I think that's what kind of led me mostly to like the spirits following the people that killed them and stuff like that, and inevitably to necromancy.
It was very, very awesome to read, because especially as all of the plots kind of converge, and there's a couple of big showdowns along the way, and everything really builds up. And we've talked about the chaos before, about a couple of different stories, but it was really prevalent in this one, where as the story went on, you could almost feel things kind of building hurricane levels, the tension, that type of thing. I'm just curious as well, because like I said, it isn't a gigantic tome of a book. How do you go about keeping the pacing at a level where it's that hectic and kind of frantic? Like, you could feel the tension building throughout, but not overplaying your hand really, and getting people like, okay, build, okay, nothing, okay. Because the way that this was done, it kept you on edge the entire time.
I think that's probably mostly just like kind of like keeping a beat in my head almost. And like the one that I'm writing now is actually a much slower pace for now, because it's a little bit more build up. But once I get going, just like trying to keep like a certain pace to it. And like if I listen to music while I'm writing and something like that, I'm gonna listen to like some thrash, something to keep me going at like as fast as I can.
Also very interesting to hear. I've asked that question a couple of times very recently and get mixed responses. Do you listen to music when you write?
Not all the time, because I also have a problem of sometimes I might start looking for what I want to listen to and then just go down a rabbit hole where I'm like, finding a new band or something, and then I'm just listening to music.
Yeah, exactly.
So
you pivot hobbies.
Yeah. So as long as I like find something to listen to quick enough, I listen to music when I write.
That's interesting. Is it all? Does it have lyrics in it?
Sometimes it doesn't. It just depends on what I'm in the mood for, basically. Like sometimes I'll toss on like, find like a YouTube video of like fantasy tavern music or something.
Yeah.
And I'll toss that on, or I'm like, okay, I'm gonna listen to Motorhead.
It's very funny to hear, especially on like YouTube, to see what pops up. I guess to like with the different genres. I saw one the other day, and it was like Dr. Dre imagined in the Renaissance, and it was like all of his stuff put on like lutes and like these crazy instruments, and you're just listening to it, and it's like, this is no right being as good as it is right now.
I haven't heard there's a bunch of the bardcore stuff. I've heard some of that, and a lot of that is, like popular songs, modern day songs on lutes.
It's crazy. I bought no, I wasn't a lute. I bought a mandolin and was terrible at it. I think I had it for like a week and a half. I was like, what am I doing? But it's just funny to see that type of stuff come up. What other hobbies do you have? Because we're talking music. We've mentioned that you were big into that scene. Do you play an instrument at all?
No, I never picked up an instrument. When I was a kid, I was one of those kids in early elementary school that they were like, oh, you're good at math, so you should play an instrument. And I wanted to play the drums. And then like a few months later, the music teacher was like, you have no rhythm. You will never play the drums. So then I just wrote lyrics and yelled into a microphone.
It sounds a little more up your alley.
Yeah.
Do you think that lyricism and the way that you put a story together in a song, it's probably been super beneficial in this career, path as an author, right?
I think it definitely there's definite crossover. Mm-hmm. And I think even because like I kind of have my own sentence structure. Mm-hmm. I think that also carries over from my lyric writing. Like I kind of write more towards a pace and a beat than worrying about like I write with a lot of sentence fragments, then like a couple fragments that are run on and stuff like that. Mm. And I think that might come a lot from that. I've also snuck in old song lyrics into my books a couple times.
Oh, that's hilarious. To some Easter eggs.
Yep.
Yeah. It's very interesting to hear that. Not yes, also the Easter eggs, but just the way that you put your sentences together as far as structure goes, because you can tell the musically inclined people the way that their creative stuff comes out their work. I feel like your stories, especially with the pace that it's set, it's almost constructed. Like I said, I was a big like jam band guy, a bit like that type of thing. And a lot of the key aspects in that genre and that scene is tension and release. Like you have the peaks and the valleys, that type of structure built to it. And going through your books, not just the full story in general, but like you even just said, the sentences that are pieced together, you can almost tell where it's the note hits. So it's very cool to hear you say that that kind of transcends the lyric writing and got brought over to your actual writing. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
But do you who do you look at, not as an inspiration, but as someone who does a similar thing to you as far as writing goes? I feel like you and, the way that your sentences are put together, I'm going to stick with that for a second. You and Anna Smith Spark have a very similar dynamic where I read your words and it flows like each word was put there intentionally to really kind of put like a rhythm to the sentence.
I would never personally say that. I'm very flattered that you said it. And thank you. But I would never in a second try to compare myself.
Just the way that it's written.
Yeah.
Before ZB comes in here and cuts my fucking head off.
But yeah, no, I mean that's always one of my problems. I never have been good at giving comparisons because I'm always I do think like that. Like,
I think it's the way it's written is very lyrical. That's the word I would use to describe. And I feel like who else was someone else I was just talking to as well. It feels like every word is with a purpose, as opposed to just like, I'm going to spit it out there and that's how this is going to get done. And like, if it works, it works. Like there's nothing, I guess my perfect rationale behind that comparison is because your stories are not full of fluff and 15 pages of info dumps and that type of thing, where I feel like everything is much more purposeful and direct, which I appreciate. And I definitely like that aspect of the storytelling, especially along with each book being its own thing. You know, you don't have to open up one of your stories and go, last episode it was, and you have to, you know, catch up on the background of what each person was doing. You know, was that kind of something you set out to do? Because obviously, especially, I haven't read your initial series, but Vermin, how, like you already mentioned, each one picks up after a battle and goes from there. Was this an intentional kind of way that you wanted to put the stories in this world together, where it'll all kind of combine down the line at some point, but for the moment, it's all branched out and could all be read kind of individually?
Yeah, I think bits of it, yes. Other things kind of didn't come in till I wrote the Dregs, because the Scroungers I wrote and published in this, I think, 3 months from like first word down to paperback in hand. And like I had written parts of it for in short stories, and then decided to kind of like put all these things together to build the world. And I knew that I wanted to have a series of standalones. And then it wasn't until I was done with that and kind of had like those sections from Olaf that I decided I wanted it to all start at that battle. And then that would be the way that I did the world building, was each book would just follow different people to a different place, and then that would all together bring everything out and create a larger story. And then eventually, once I'm done with them, I might do something else that's like further down the line, like, okay, this is a new series set in this world 10 years after these events or something like that.
It's a very unique and interesting way of doing it. And I'm going to do another comparison. It is Malazan Light, because each book you pick up, it's a completely different thing, but set in the same world. So, you know, comparisons work, man. I'm telling you.
I'm going to coach you on these.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't like I feel weird doing it myself, but if someone else does it, I'm going to use that.
Exactly. And it happens to work out. I'll stand by it. Pivoting now to just as a reader, as a book fan that you are, if you had to pick one book for someone to read over a weekend, what would that be?
For someone to read over a weekend, that would actually, I set some books aside just in case something like this came up.
Oh, Residuum
by D.B. Rook. It's a short, fun read. It's it kind of starts off as like this science fiction eldritch nightmare. Like, it's dark, it's a far future dystopian sort of thing, but then it makes this spin where it introduces the rest of the main characters, where it still has that underlying dark dystopian, like killer robots out murdering people. But then you meet this crew that adds this like kind of fun adventure aspect, some humor, and it turns into like almost an 80s action movie.
Oh, nice.
And it's just great characters, a fun read. It's a little bit of everything. Highly recommended.
All right, that sounds good. I think I have that one on my wish list. I think you commented that actually on my post.
I've been shouting about this one all year, pretty much.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna have to check that one out. And a couple, just to dig a little bit deeper, if you had to pick for the year of 2025, what do you think your first couple books that you've read this year would be your favorite so far?
First couple books I read this year that'd be my favorites. Definitely The Hallows by H.L. Tinsley. Hall of Bones by Tim Hardy. Residuum, obviously, that we just said. What the hell's the name? The Last Gasp of Midnight by Thomas Howard Riley.
Mm-hmm.
Dance with Me by Olivia J. Elliott.
Mm.
And then if you're looking for something that's like a cozy adventure story, Carpentry in the Elven Forest by Alex French just came out. And I read an early copy of that at the beginning of the year.
That's one genre I have not taken the jump into yet. I don't know why. It seems very fun.
I don't know if it would technically be cozy, like compared to what I'm writing. Yes.
Yeah,
exactly. It's more like a Terry Pratchett inspired, like humorous adventure fantasy.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's very interesting. I have to check a couple of those out. I read Hall of Bones last year, and it's awesome. So agree with that. And
I need to get onto the rest of that series.
So do I. I just bought the second one, so I'm gonna have to jump into that. But yeah, that series was great. Well, book one was great. I'm imagining the rest as well.
Yeah.
If you had to pick another genre to jump into and write, what would it be?
It's kind of funny. So I've had this determination for a while now, probably like a year or so, to write cozy grimdark.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote one short story recently that I think I'm told hit that mark pretty well. So once that can be announced, but I think that's the main, like I definitely prefer to stick with fantasy,
Mm-hmm.
but I think I like having a little bit more humor and stuff like that involved once in a while.
Mm.
So
cozy grimdark, you're going to be the forerunner.
It's like I started saying it as a joke a while ago, and not like to mock anything or anything like that. That just like wondering what it would entail, and I keep wanting like starting short stories, and I always end up writing a short story that starts with like it's a tavern keeper. I'm like, I don't know. I think I just want to write about a guy that owns a bar. So I think that's kind of pushing me in that direction.
Yeah, that's not funny. And yeah, you could always just go and keep getting drunk and being like, it's research. Like it's for the book.
Yeah.
Like just yeah, maybe you can get those bills as like a tax write-off or something. Like submit it as like a 1099.
Just a bunch of fucking crumpled up napkins with my bar tab on them mailed to the IRS.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go.
Audit me. Like how bad could it be, really? Before heading out, can you let everyone know where to find you? I think I already said it's one of the names on Twitter is Revolting Peasant, but where can people buy your stuff or really kind of stay up to date with your work?
So the best spot would be I have a Ko-fi. So that's ko-fi.com/Thomas J Devens. You can get my ebooks directly from me there, and they're discounted there. So if you want to avoid the whole Amazon of it all and save $1 or whatever, do that. If you're in the States, you can even get paperbacks from me on there. Otherwise, I also have a link tree, again, Thomas J Devens, and that can direct you to everything else, to Amazon. All my ebooks are wide now, so you can get those wherever. And at some point, I'll be making the audiobook wide too. But right now, that's only on Audible.
Mm-hmm. Well, awesome. And dude, I'm very happy that you agreed to do, well, not even agreed, because like I said at the beginning, this was an offer from you before this was even up and running. So I appreciate that. And I'm very glad that it was able to come to fruition, especially with the audiobook dropping. It was almost like a perfect time. As soon as I saw that happening, I was like, okay, we're doing it. And I'm glad it was able to happen, because you've been super supportive, and you deserve support in return for being such a cool person and really great writer. I love your stuff, so I'm definitely looking forward to everything that's coming out in the future.
Thanks a lot, man. I really appreciate it.
Of course, and we're going to just keep shit talking over in Grimdark Epic Fantasy, and tagging each other in nonsense on Twitter and everywhere else. But this is the start of many good things. But again, just thank you for coming on, and thank you everyone in the chat that was popping off for a little bit there. So I appreciate everyone there. Go out and buy his stuff immediately. And yeah, thanks again for joining, and have a good rest of your night, dude.